Hey everyone, just a random guy here. So, I'm not really one for making YouTube videos and doing content creation, but I decided that now that we're getting close to the end of Post Malone's Murder Circus for Hunt Showdown, that I am going to put a video together because I wanted to talk about this game. I love this game. I won't lie. There are things about it that I think get hotly debated. I love it for what it is. I've been playing the game, just a little about me. I've been playing the game since the early access launch 2018. On and off, have a little over 1,000 hours in the game. And it's one of the few games out there that I still play regularly. You know, I got a job, I got a kid. I play other things with friends like Helldivers 2 and stuff like that, and sometimes I play Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate for myself. But in terms of like multiplayer games, this is my go-to. And for 2025, I see this as being a really important year for the game. You know, Crytek even said themselves that like this is one of the biggest events they've done in a while. So I want to really look ahead at Hunt and see where I think the game needs to go to continue to be successful, and also just kind of do a look back on what worked and what didn't work in the event. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. I have a couple of notes here on another monitor that I'm just going to breeze through as I go through with the video, and I think the way I'm going to tackle this is I'm just going to go into the Battle Pass details and just talk through things one at a time and just offer up my feedback and opinions on these things, and maybe towards the end of the video I'll get to some ideas that I had. So, like I said, I'm not doing this for attention. I'm just doing this for the game, right? Because I do like this game a lot. So overall, the Murder Circus, right? For me, I had a really great time with the Murder Circus. I think there were some things about the event that they could have done better, but for the most part, I really enjoyed the variety they had on offer with this event. I'm also one of those people who actually do like the circus theme. I don't think the clowns and all the stuff like that was too jarring. Yeah, maybe with like the crossover stuff with like Post Malone and Ghostface, that might be odd for some people and it takes them out of the experience. But for me, I think it's just the way that the industry in general is going, and popular IPs are a method of generating revenue for video games nowadays. So I think it's just a reality that we have to live with. And as long as Crytek, sticks to their guns and doesn't go crazy with the crossovers, I personally don't have I don't have too much of a stake in it. I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me. I like Post Malone. I like Ghostface, so I really can't complain right now, right? What I can talk about, though, is the event itself. So I think the event overall, from a game perspective, was a lot of fun. There were things about it, like the story, I'll be honest, wasn't that great. Even now, it's like, okay, what is the Helio Stone? It's referenced in the game and the trailers. You never actually see anything. Even for like wacky stuff like this, it'd be nice to have more like lore stuff associated with it. But I think that's just what has to happen with events in general. Having it so that maybe you have to travel to a compound to get another lore chapter versus having to just unlock it in a battle pass, I think is a better way of going about doing the story for these types of events. But overall, I did enjoy the Murder Circus. Other things I would change, like with the compounds, for example, I would actually like it to be a little bit more gimmicky, more random things around the compounds to do. I did like the stalls and all the pledge rewards and stuff like that, but like the shooting range I thought could be better. Having actual targets and not just these balloons that you just like slide your character along to just get them out of the way as quickly as possible. That would have been nice. Even stuff like, you have like a strength game and you put a sledgehammer next to it and you hit the game with the sledgehammer, you get a point or two. Stuff like that would have been fun, Maybe even having it more gunplay focused. You put a crow's nest up in the main tent. Stuff like that, I think that would have been nice. For the compound's sake. For the Shredder, I liked the Shredder. I mean, I thought it was a little crazy pre-nerf with the frag blades, and post-nerf, I didn't really see it too much, but I like the idea of these limited time power weapons, if you will, right, for the game, where you just have something in there that's event specific, you have fun with it for a little while, but it doesn't stay in the game forever. I'm cool with stuff like this, I enjoyed having the Shredder and having the frag blades bounce around, that you pick them up with Blade Seer. I like stuff like that. So for me, I'd be okay seeing this, like, and the circus in general, right, returning to the game. And I'll leave it at that for the Shredder. Ursa Mortis, also really liked it. I liked that she was more dynamic compared to some of the other AI that has been in the game since the very beginning. I do think it was pretty cheap that she can get killed relatively easily with certain cheap things like the penny shot Derringer, like two-shotting her in the stomach, and just infinite ammo from Blademancer and stuff like that. So it'd be nice if she felt like more of a threat. And it would also be good, like even after the event ends, to be able to see her like on Mammon's Gulch, right? Like if you're in the woods and you get attacked by a bear, just to break up the pace a little bit, right? So I like stuff like that personally. Yeah, that's Ursa Mortis. Fortune telling machine. I liked the fortune telling machine. It was a good way to spend your pledge marks, especially because we had 9 of them, right? I think the thing I didn't really like so much was that it was way too efficient at money making. I think I saw people, like, you get into a server fight around the circus, everyone dies except you loot all the pledge marks, and I saw one guy on YouTube walk away with, like, from the first extraction bonus, like 12,000 hunt dollars from the game. That's pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie, even for events, which are generally, good ways to make money during events, but this was way too good. So I like getting rewards for the fortune telling machine, a little bit of that gamba, if you will. But money, yeah, maybe gotta put a damper on that, because I think the bounty token should always be the thing you're gunning for, rather than just farming pledge marks and ratting, right? The main reason I'm actually making the video is not just for the event itself, but for the troops themselves, right? I really liked what we had on offer from all of the troops. And in terms of balance between the troops, I don't think that mattered as much, because let's be honest, Trick Shooter was arguably the strongest troop in the Murder Circus event, but I don't think that was the intent, right? I think each of them were just made to offer different styles of play, and I think they did a good job at being on theme for what they were looking to accomplish, right? So the Trick Shooter, Peerless Aim, right? Ringmaster, Command the Show, Mystic, Bewilder, and Be Feared, right? So in terms of, like, the flavor, all the traits were great. But compared to other events prior, I liked these traits because I feel like there's a place for every single one of them, even after the event ends, and I'll get into why that's the case, right? And what I feel like they should do with them should they stay in the game, right? So let me go into it. I'm going to start off with the Trick Shooter trait, Trick Shooter troop to start off with, right? So this one, Blademancer Crackshot, very powerful, and very prevalent in a lot of the games that I played in the event. So Blademancer, I'm going to start off with this one. This one has been pretty hotly debated and was even hotfixed towards the back half of the event. So for me, Blademancer, I liked what it did. I think the quality of life was an interesting concept, but, and I've seen debates online for this, right, where it did too much damage, and with Berserker, I would say, yeah, it probably did too much damage, right, or the range should be less, or you should have line of sight, right? All of those things were all kind of not as important to me as the reason why I didn't like Blademancer. And for me, I didn't feel like the quality of life that it offered was worth fragmenting the ammo economy that you normally have with, projectile weapons, right? So, like, I'll give you an example. So for the crossbow, right, if you have Blademancer, there is no reason to ever actually use the regular bolts, right? You're always going to use the steel bolts. Or with the hunting bow, right? You are never going to go back to using the regular arrows if you can just retrieve your poison arrows ad infinitum, right? So for me, those types of things aren't worth ruining the ammo economy for quality of life. What I would like to see for Blademancer, and this is going to get into another idea that I have for later on when I get to that segment of this video, I want to see Blademancer as a 4-cost burn trait. And I have a very specific reason why a burn trait and not a scarce trait. So the way I think about the game, right? So there's common language for certain things in the game, right? Like if you have the Deadeye, you always know that gun is going to have the Deadeye scope variant, right? If a trait has the name Sear or Sense in it, you generally speaking have an idea as to what that trait is going to do, right? Now, in this case, we already have a trait in the game that's called Necromancer, right? And that Mancer part is what's important. And Necromancer is a 4-cost burn trait. So to me, it just makes sense from a design perspective, I guess, that Blade Mancer also be a 4-cost burn trait, right? And for Blade Mancer, I think the way that the trait should actually work is, like, when you go into Darksight as it is, you effectively just, you channel it and your ammo comes back to you one at a time. I think they should change it so that rather than that happening, just you channel it for 2 seconds when you hold the interact key, and you just retrieve all your bladed projectiles at once in a 100-meter radius, and you apply the pull-out damage. And the reason why I feel like it should work like that is because there's more strategy and decision-making behind when to use the trait, right? Because you can use it just to simply resupply on all your bladed projectile ammo, or if you do land that long-range crossbow hit with your steel bolt, right, then you have a decision to make. Okay, can I kill this guy with Blade Mancer, right, and take him out and get a leg up and an advantage, right, and be strategic about it. That's why I think that'd be a good design for Blade Mancer, and it still follows that same Mancer logic that I have in my head here. So that's my feeling on Blade Mancer. For Crack Shot, though, Crack Shot's very powerful. There's no denying that, right? And I think because of that, if it were to stay in the game, I think there's a very good argument to be made that it should be the next 9-cost trait in the game, right? I would say that for this game, the trait cost for coincides with the power and what's on offer for the player, right? So Doctor is the only other 9-cost trait in the game for a very game-changing effect, right? That is, for a lot of people, an auto-include, right? Yeah, I guess you can say that you could run Physician and Frontiersman with a regen shot and not need Doctor, but for the most part, you have a advantage with Doctor over someone who doesn't have Doctor, right? The same goes for Crack Shot. You have an advantage with Crack Shot compared to someone who doesn't have Crack Shot because your gunplay is objectively better, right? You have less bloom, less sway, right? ADS, all the stuff that comes with Crack Shot, right? So that you objectively have better aim as a result of Crack Shot, So I think that makes it feel like, for me, that it deserves to be placed at the highest trait cost, right? And 9 points is a pretty significant investment, right? Like, if you wanted to live that chain pistol dream, if you will, right? You have to spend a whopping 17 trait points because you need Crack Shot, not need, but you can get Crack Shot with fanning to have, the most value with the chain pistol that you can get with the perks that influence it, right? The same would go for guns with levering, right? You get Crack Shot, you get levering, and then you have a much stronger levering weapon as a result of, being a higher level with your hunter. So for me, it makes sense to keep it at 9 cost should it stay in the game. So that covers Trick Shooter. Let's go into Ringmaster next. So for me, both traits that the Ringmaster offered were balanced, in my opinion, right? Shadow Crush was a good trait. I liked it a lot. It was good to run with guns that you don't want to shoot often because you want to conserve their ammo for actual fights. But for me, I think that Shadow Crush is another argument for the design language that I have, right? Where you already have things like Shadow and Shadow Leap as scarce traits. Therefore, I would also say that Shadow Crush should be a scarce trait. And considering the power that you get from Shadow Crush, where you can just literally kill any AI or deal a big chunk of damage to the boss, I think it's worthy of being a scarce trait, right? It's not always in play by everyone, but when you do have it, it's powerful, right? So it makes sense for having it be a scarce trait. As for Corpse Seer is a good effect. I think in the 2 to 3 cost range for trait points would make sense for it. Because then you're comparing it against like other choices of 2 to 3, like Bulwark or Salve Skin or Pain Sense, right? So 2 to 3 makes sense for me to get that extra, that dark side boost for a second when you don't have a bounty token. I think that's fair. As for Mystic, I think this one gets a bad rap, and because it technically has what people would consider the weakest of the effects, right? They're more like the meme builds, if you will, right? But I think there's value to be had there, and I think there's a fun play style in playing Mystic as well, right? So for Poltergeist, for example, right, it has niche use cases, yes, but I think it would make a good addition to the game at like 1 or 2 costs, if you will, right? And even Blast Sense, where some people will say, oh, well, you don't really need Blast Sense because you can already hear so well. Why would you need to be able to see where people are shooting from or where explosives blew up in Darksight? And for me, the justification goes like this for these traits. So all of the traits that tend to interact with Darksight do better when you stack them up together, right? So think of it like this. If you have Blast Sense and Poltergeist, and you have Vigilant, and you have Pain Sense, right? You have all the traits that allow you to see beyond in Darksight. You can legitimately watch people from afar and know what's going on. You get a lot of valuable information in Darksight that I don't think people really give Darksight enough credit for in general, right? Most people just use it as, oh, this is where the clue is, or this is where I go to, necro my friend, right? And they don't see it beyond what I believe Darksight is for, which is, seeing beyond your senses type of thing, right? So with all these traits all together, you get a lot of good information out of it, right? And that was if you haven't tried it, give it a shot. It's a very fun play style. Being able to set up traps around a compound. You're in Darksight, you're seeing people go through. You're setting them off, they're setting off the traps, they're getting shot, you're seeing them die with Witness, right? That kind of stuff. It's pretty cool. I like that kind of stuff. So I think there's value to keeping traits like that and offering up other ways to play the game, right? And I think that kind of goes into all the stuff I wanted to say about the troops, right? And in terms of event points, yeah, this stuff is all fine. So going forward now, because I talked about Blademancer being a burn trait, I had a specific reason why, but this is doesn't just go for Blademancer, right? This just goes for the game in general. So if I go back a tab, I'm just going to go to my Hunter for a second here, and I'm going to click on the trait points, if you will, right? Now, think about it in terms of looking ahead for the game, right? So imagine all six of the traits are now in the game officially, right? However, we've still had the same number of trait slots since like the very beginning of the game, right? And I think we're getting to a point now where I think this needs to change somewhat. So this is one of the ideas that I had for the game in general, right? So rather than just having all of your traits only be able to have up to 15, I personally think we're at the point where, like for scarce traits, for example, right? You have scarce as a trait, as a parameter, and burn trait as a parameter, right? I think at this point, burn traits should just be their own section of your trait slots, if you will, right? Now, hear me out on this. So, let's say you were to have, you can make arguments for what it should be. I think personally, you should have up to 5 burn trait slots, right? And there's a reason why I'm saying 5. So, let's say, for example, I'm leveling up this character and I usually like to play solo, right? So obviously for me, an auto include is going to be Necromancer, right? And that's a burn trait. So already one of my trait points is already going away for Necromancer, right? So now I have 14 more to play with, right? Now I'm going to do my auto includes, the things that make my weapon better, like Iron Eye or the very powerful Lightfoot right now, right? And I'm going through the list and now I'm taking off things and not able to fill out my slots, if you will, with all the things I would normally want because I'm taking stuff like that. And why that's important is by the time I hit like level, depending on how many trait points I get, for the game, for the experience, I'm never taking these or almost never taking these because my trait slots are already totally full. So I don't get any value from having these traits unless I were to find them early on in my character's like lifetime, if you will, right? And not just that, but these traits are also one of 3s, right? Which means you can have up to 3 of these in your trait slots, right? You can have 3 Relentlesses if you wanted to, right? Not losing a health chunk 3 times in teams, that's crazy, right? So for me, that's why it makes sense to have it at 5. So follow me with this, right? If you had 5 burn trait slots, you could get Necro out of here and just have it be your first burn trait slot, right? Then you can get like another trait like Blademancer, right? And then Blademancer could be your second slotted burn trait, right? But then you have the wiggle room for things like Death Cheat and Rampage, Relentless, and Remedy And if I had, like I said, up to 5, so if I had 3 more slots, I could have 1 of each. I can have 2 of the 3. I can have all 3. I can have 3 rampages and a bomb lance and have a good time and have a very powerful character, right? And because they're scarce traits, you can't just buy them off the rip, right? So if you were to acquire the traits over time, as you gain more levels and your character goes into more hunts, it makes sense that they have more power behind them, just beyond the trait slots that they're already getting to make themselves powerful, right? So that's what makes sense to me. And then for things like Shadow and Shadow Leap, or, if Shadow Crush comes to the game, because I said it should be a scarce trait, right, or Berserker, those wouldn't go into these 5 slots because they're not burn traits, right? These are specifically burn and burn scarce traits. Your scarce traits would still go up here as normal, right? But your burn traits are separate, okay? And something you could also do, if you wanted to make it so that you have more common time acquiring traits outside of like an event, let's say, right? Maybe making it so that when you get that first extraction bonus, right? Like normally if I had a first extraction bonus, it would appear here, right? Next to the number of pledge marks I have or my hunter's level, right? If I get that first extraction bonus, I can buy, when I say buy, I mean I can acquire a scarce trait now that I've gone through my first extraction, which does a few things, right? One, it caps it to it's a daily cap now, right? So I can't constantly buy a scarce trait, but I can at least be selective on which one that I want, right? And notice that I specifically didn't say a burn trait, right? Because I wouldn't want to just be able to buy Necro or, Blade Mancer, let's say, for free, right? I would just want the traits that I would want to have access to, so I can get a remedy for free if I'm playing in a team, right? If I'm playing solo, I can get 1 rampage for free, right? Or no, excuse me, I'm just saying it backwards now. I'm getting myself. Well, actually, no, I'm not saying it backwards. Gotta slow down. Scarce trait, right? Not burn trait. Scarce trait. So I could buy. Out there. Apologies. Give me a second to reset my thoughts. So yes, a scarce trait, right? I could buy Remedy, I could buy Relentless, I can get Shadow, right? And have that fill up a slot or fill up one of my 5 slots down here. I think that makes sense, right? The other time that I could see it happening is when you hit like level 50 with your hunter, right? You hit that max level, you can get another scarce trait to slot in as well, right? I think those types of changes make sense in my opinion, right? There's a couple other random ideas that I have, and I think that's also good because then you can have more freedom in terms of the types of burn traits that you create, right? Like maybe you can have a burn trait where when you banish a boss, you can resummon all the grunts that are around the compound, right? Or you can transform a grunt into an immolator, right? You have like some metamorphosis burn trait, which is very on brand, right? Because it's burn trait, create an immolator, right? So stuff like that I think would be cool, So being able, so really the theme here is separating burn and burn scarce traits from the slots total and giving yourselves another means of acquiring power for your hunter, right? I like the other changes that they've made with like the hunter progression. I think that's a good thing, and stuff like that I think is also good. That was just one of my main ideas I wanted to air out while I did this video. I do have some gun ideas. I think that would also be cool. I have 2 guns in mind that I would love to see added to the game, so I'm going to kind of end off with this, and then we could talk in the comments or whatever, right? I can make another video. Who cares? So for me, there are 2 guns that I would like to see now added to Hunt. I think we're at this point where I want to see the Remington Model 8, and I want to see the Colt 1911. I want to see the older versions of the Colt, like the no slide lock, mag release at the heel type of Colt, like the 1900 or one of those older grandfathers to the 1911. I think that'd be a cool, for the, you call it the Caldwell 45 Auto, whatever, right? Whatever you want to call it. But I think it'd be a nice, fun addition to the roster, if you will, because now we have a medium ammo semi-automatic pistol, right, added to the game. there's going to be some hot contention about that, but I think we're at the point where that would be cool to have in the game, personally, having one of the older iterations of that classic 1911, you know? And it'd be cool because then it's like if you were wielding two of them, now you have another gun that you can do a custom reload with like ambidextrous, right? Because now you have a magazine in the gun, right? So stuff like that would be cool. As for the Remington Model 8 or whatever it is you want to, whatever Hun wants to call it, right? I think that would be fun because we already have so many of the long ammo bolt action rifles. It would be a nice way to break it up, if you will, the types of long ammo weapons we have. So it could be, expensive, make it like, I don't know, $880 Hunt dollars, right? That feels right to me. And then you have, a long ammo rifle that you could reload with a stripper clip, but it's a semi, right? And it might seem powerful, but I think that would fulfill a cool niche in the game, right? You could already kind of do that with the Crown and King 45 in a way if you get slugs. But I would say just for this, just make the slugs scarce ammo, and then you can just have the Remington in the game, and you arguably have a rifle, that is better than just the Crown with slug, right? Makes sense to me. Yeah, I mean, there's other random things I could talk about. Like, I think the Krag Silencer was an interesting addition to the game. I liked the Krag Silencer. I know some people are saying the Krag is now like the best gun in the game, blah blah blah. I don't see it as that. I think maybe buffing subsonic ammo might be good, or doing some stuff like that. Maybe making some minor adjustments to the Krag, but overall, I don't have too many issues with the Krag, silencer as it is, right? Because it only has 126 damage, so the damage drop off happens pretty quick beyond 30 meters. I think it's just because the muzzle velocity for a silencer is so strong, the headshots are still pretty consistent. I think that's what throws most people off, but especially because like the Spark Silencer has 450 something muzzle velocity, yeah, compared to the Krag, which has like 518. So yeah, I guess you can have a better time, but then you have more ammo and utility varieties with the Spark Silencer, so there's use cases for both, So stuff like that I've seen people talking about, but for the most part, the things I care about are, Murder Circus, good event, could have been some changes. I think there needs to be some adjustments to the way we do hunter traits, namely separating them by burn trait, having them be their own slots. Those are just some ideas. Thanks for listening if you made it this far into the video. And, yeah, have a good day.